While everyone else in Egypt was starving, Joseph was stacking wealth. He had the divine strategy. He controlled provision and made land to become a legacy. Well, tune in to episode 4 of Money Matters Show as we unpack this divine wealth strategy with me, Moegi Kwamboka. We see Joseph in Genesis chapter 41. He is interpreting Pharaoh's dream of the fat cows and the lean cows. Okay, this is to symbolize, as a believer or as a Christian, you should understand economic cycles. You see, Joseph understood that there will be 7 years of abundance to represent the fat cows, and the seven lean cows to represent 7 severe years of famine. You see, now this is to tell you, as a believer, the first thing you should do or you should understand is to understand the economic cycle, the years of growth and recession, so that you may be able to make wise understanding or wise investment of your wealth. We see Joseph advising Pharaoh to store what? The food, the grains, because of the 7 years of famine. This is to tell you, as a believer, you should learn something we call strategic accumulation. In bracket, saving and investment. During the 7 years of plenty, we see that Joseph had told Pharaoh to store up the grains. Okay? This is not merely to mean for the rainy days, but for the large-scale, systematic accumulation of vital resources for the nation. This is to represent, number one, saving, okay? Setting aside a portion of your income or production. Number two, investment. I wrote here that the stored grain was an investment for the future that would appreciate significantly during the scarcity moment, the 7 years of lean cows. Okay, and number three, I wrote that under Joseph's leadership, we saw that there was a centralized control of resources and management, to show you that as a believer you should be disciplined, organized in managing your resources, whether personal or collective. This is to represent, number one, saving, okay? Setting aside a portion of your income or production. Number two, investment. I wrote here that the stored grain was an investment for the future that would appreciate significantly during the scarcity moment, the 7 years of lean cows. Okay, and number three, I wrote that under Joseph's leadership, we saw that there was a centralized control of resources and management, to show you that as a believer you should be disciplined, organized in managing your resources, whether personal or collective. So I'll begin by reading Genesis 47 verse 13 to 14, and this is what it says: that so when the famine had already spread all over the whole country, Joseph opened all the storehouse. Okay, what are we learning from this? We are learning that before famine, Joseph had stored some grains. I think we already saw that. Okay, so he had stored some grains during the 7 years of plenty. He wasn't just saving, he was investing, okay? He was investing in the future to control the economic power. So as a believer, what should you do? Number one, store and invest during the abundance season, okay? Number two, as a believer, as I said earlier, let me just reckon what I said. You should understand economic cycles, the periods of growth and recession, okay? That's very profound. Also, something that you should know is that wealth is not just about earning, okay? But what you set aside is what creates your wealth, okay? In Kikuyu, they say, shilingi yasheragia shilingi ede, as in a shilling calls another shilling, okay? So when you put 1 plus 1, it comes to, we say in Swahili, the wahenga walisema haba na haba ujaza kibaba, okay? So ensure you set aside some coins or whatever it is for your rainy days. So let me continue. In verse 14, Genesis 14, we see that Joseph collected all the money. You know, these guys brought money in exchange of food, okay? So Joseph collected all the money and brought it into Pharaoh's house, okay? That is what we call resource management, okay? And I want you to know that ownership beats salary, okay? Ownership beats salary, okay? I want you to understand that money changes hands, but those who control resources remain in power, okay? Sometimes you can run out of cash, like we will see here, that the Egyptians and the Canaanites ran out of cash, okay? It's very key for you to understand that Egypt didn't just sell grain. They controlled the means of provision, okay? We see that still, even after the cash running out, they still had a lot of provision, okay? So what will I encourage a believer? Number one, don't just work for money, on the source. I don't know, Miss Jesema, you go and own sijui de la what, I don't know your company ya pesa inaitwa aje, but just ensure you own the source. Number two, invest in assets that meet basic needs such as food, water, land, and housing, okay? And finally, control value, not just cash. Control value, not just cash. So let me continue. We see that the Egyptians, when now their cash was over, they started exchanging their livestock, their horses, cattle, cows, in exchange of food. This is to tell you they had, number one, mobile assets. Now, the liquid asset, it's over. The liquid asset will refer to money. Now they went to the mobile asset, okay? These were the livestock, okay? Now, after the livestock were over, they went to Joseph and they were like, you know what, Joseph? Now our livestock is over, our cash is over. Why don't you buy our land and you buy us? Okay? So they were able to exchange their land to get food, to signify fixed asset. As a believer, ensure you have got these things. Number one, liquid asset to represent money. Number two, mobile asset. These are livestock, okay? That when something comes up, you are able to sell your cows or your goats mbio and you sort some bills, okay? Number three, as a believer, ensure you have invested in fixed assets, which is land, real estate. I can tell you for sure that real estate is the key to the kingdom wealth. If you look at a lot of people in the Bible, the Lord blessed them with land, with the, you know, even the Lord told Abraham that the farthest you will see, I will give you. Okay? I want you to know that dominion is equals to in God's kingdom. Dominion means, number one, having dominion in the physical realm by owning land and territory. That's very profound. As a believer, you need to understand that. Okay? So invest in those three things. Number one, liquid asset, mobile asset, and fixed asset. Okay? And also what we learn from Genesis 47, 18 to 19, is that there was barter trade and leverage. Barter trade and leverage. What do we see? That wealth requires creativity. Okay, wealth requires creativity. Now, hawana mfugo. I mean, they don't have their livestock. They don't have they don't have cash. Okay, Joseph negotiated wisely, bartering grain for livestock, land, and services. Okay, these guys, when their cash was over and everything, they were like, Joseph, buy us with our land. Now they don't have money. Now in return, they're offering services to receive what? For food. Okay, as a believer, know that in tight seasons, barter your skills. Okay, barter trade, barter your skills. Okay, you can also barter land, you can also barter time. Okay, or even services. I think most of us learned something profound during the 2019 to 2020 COVID. We learned a lot of things, that you have to invest in fixed asset, in mobile asset, because a lot of companies laid off people. So people were like, do I have that mobile asset like livestock that I can sell, that I may be able to pay my bills? So, as a believer, remember that cash runs dry. Assets and ideas, they can become a currency. Leverage what you have instead of crying on what you lack. Okay? Because you see, these people, number one, they came, oh, we had the cash. Okay? When the cash ran out, they were like, what can we use? They remember they had the mobile assets. And now that is there, the cows, the livestock. And now when that ran out too, they were like, what can we offer? They were like, we can offer our land and ourselves. Okay? After now you have offered the fixed asset, they realize, we can do what? We can provide service. Okay? That's very, very key. As a believer, you understand, and you know that as a believer, you need to leverage on what you have, not crying on what you lack. All right? Point number 4, and I think this is now a repetition: land ownership. Dominion is the end game. Dominion is the end game. Ensure you own something here on earth. Own a land somewhere. So when you read Genesis 47 verse 2 to 20, it says, so Joseph bought all the land in Egypt for Pharaoh. Okay? I want you to know that God's principle of dominion often translates into land and territory in the physical realm. That's God's principle of dominion. And that's why he told Abraham, the farthest you'll see, I'll give you. And as you can see, even if you read Genesis, I think 26 somewhere, we see that the Lord even gives Isaac, Israel both, and he flourishes. And sure, you have got a piece of land, because dominion, that is dominion. That's where you will exercise your dominion from. Okay? Even Genesis 1:26 tells us, the Lord says, let us create human beings so that they may have dominion over the birds of the air, over the fish of the sea, over the creatures of the land. So how can you have this dominion unless you have got a piece here on earth? Okay? So as a believer, prioritize in owning land or a property. It is a biblical pattern. It is a biblical pattern for dominion. Real estate is a kingdom key for wealth. Those who own land, they shape the future. Imagine you own a land, let's say maybe near a town. You know, they have to consult you. They have to consult you. If they want to develop a road there or something, they have to consult you. So that's very, very profound. And finally, not finally, actually, the least, but not last, revenue model. Passive income was scripture. Let me read for you. Genesis 47, verse 24. We see now Joseph telling the people, because the people came to him, they're like, you know, you have bought us and everything. Please now give us seed. Since the land is yours, we are yours. We are in bondage for Pharaoh. Give us seed that we may plant, that we may not die, and the land may not remain what? Desolate, okay? We see that after now Joseph has given them seed. Joseph tells them that a fifth will belong to Pharaoh, and 4/5 shall belong to you. Remember, there you will get your seed to invest back, and the other one to use it in your family. It's very profound. As a believer, you understand that in every seed the Lord gives you, there is always, number one, there is always seed for bread and seed for investment. That's what we see here, because it tells them 4/5 it will remain for your family, and the other one to invest back into the land. So I hope you have gotten that as a believer. So what do we see here? When he told them that a fifth should belong to Pharaoh, this is what we see. Joseph didn't just acquire assets. As a believer, get that. He set up a taxation system. Pharaoh received 20% of the ongoing produce. It is a biblical prototype of passive income. What is the strategy for a believer? Create a system that will generate recurring income. Because when you read that chapter, we realize those laws that Joseph put in place, we were told that they are still in place. Okay, sorry for that. So that was a way, he put in a system that will keep on generating income for the government. So as a believer, set up a system that will keep on recurring or generating recurring income. Okay. Number two, don't just sell once. Build models that keep producing recurring income. That's what we saw, recurring income. So set up models that keep on producing, not producing once. And allow me to say this, that tithes, taxes, and shares are a biblical wealth systems. Tax is what keeps our governments going, you know, the building of roads, hospitals, and everything. Another thing that we are seeing, faith and favor. Position yourself in God's kingdom, okay? They said, now these are the Egyptians telling Joseph, they said in Genesis 47 verse 25, you have saved our lives. May we find favor in the eyes of my Lord. Okay? Now, this is Joseph. Joseph's favor came from alignment with God's purpose. His purpose was ilikuwa gani? That Joseph operated in the mountain of economics. So as a believer, ensure that you align with God's purpose, because true wealth begins with divine assignment. Most of us, we are in assignments that the Lord has not put us in place, or the Lord has not appointed us to do them. So ensure, as a believer, you seek wisdom from God before major moves. Favor is a wealth accelerator. Stay aligned with divine instructions. Strategy without God is a hassle. Strategy with God is dominion. Now allow me to do what? To summarize all the stories that I've said in Genesis 47. So number one, I'll begin with the principle. The first principle is preparation. The biblical insight in it says, sow during plenty. And in wealth application, I'll tell you, save and invest early. Okay, that is the first one. The second one in the principle is resources. Okay, is resources. In the biblical insight from Genesis 47, we have seen control. How did you see the control? By the sale of grain. Okay, you see that? And as a believer, what can you do so that you may remain? Number one, don't labor, but own assets. Okay, own assets, because they will come in handy. They will come in handy. All right. Remember, we say that whoever controls you remains in power. Whoever controls you remains in power. Another principle is leverage. Leveraging, okay? You see, barter. When you have gone cashless, you can barter your skills and your services. In the wealth application for a believer, use what you have. Now you have run out of cash, you have run out of mobile assets and fixed assets and liquid assets. You use what you have. What is it? That's skill and services. Okay? Another biblical principle that we are seeing in Genesis 47 is land. Biblical insight by land. Okay? How can a believer use that knowledge in wealth application? Ensure as a believer you invest in real estate. Okay? You can own apartments, you know. You can own apartments, you can buy land, you can, ensure you own a piece. Ensure you own a piece, okay, in real estate. Another principle we are seeing in Genesis 47 is passive income. 20% tax to Pharaoh. This is to tell you as a believer, because that 20% ilikuwa inapeanwa to remittance to the government, no matter what. So, as a believer, set up systems that will keep on generating income for you. Not once, build up models that will keep on producing wealth for you. Another principle we are seeing in Genesis 47 is favor. Joseph's divine assignment. We see that as Joseph aligned or stayed in his divine assignment, we see that he had favor, right? So as a believer, what does that one tell you? Stay in God's plan. Stay in God's plan, because when you stay in God's plan, you are able to create your wealth, you are able to prosper, you are able to have influence, okay? To have influence. It's very key that you understand that as a believer. Final takeaway. Joseph didn't just survive the famine. He used it as a wealth transfer moment. Okay? How will this relate to a believer? In global crisis, we all remember the COVID 2019. Those who apply divine strategies rise to influence. Most of the time, when we have global crisis, there are people who rise to influence. In Genesis 47, is a call not just to financial literacy, but a spiritual alignment and economic leadership. If this episode has stirred your faith, subscribe, share, and sow into your season of wisdom. I have been your host, Moigi Komboka. Keep it here. See you next time on episode 5.